Foreign aid first began with colonial superpowers. Starting from the 19th century up to the 1930s, countries like Germany, France, and Britain were providing regular aid to their colonies in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. These were used to build infrastructure like ports, roads, and railways, and promote economic development. The practice continued even after decolonization. During the Cold War, foreign aid became a tool for gaining alliances. Countries began making more definite commitments to provide aid, even those that didn't have colonies in the past. However, it is only in the 1960s, under the World Bank leadership of Robert McNamara, that poverty entered the discussion. Aid started to fund programs that aimed to meet people's basic needs in health, education, water, and sanitation. But why do countries give foreign aid in the first place? To help us answer this question and others about foreign aid, we talked to Mrs. Maria Ella Oplas. She is currently a professor in the economics department of De La Salle University. However, she previously worked with the Canadian Foreign Aid Agency for the Philippines.
Usually they have common interests. So let's take, for example, the European Union. The interest of European Union is in health. In the Philippines, we also need health. So we may have concerns on health and etc. So usually there's a common interest to both. So and then it's matched.
Even though these countries may have common interest, there are other ways to achieve it. We therefore ask, what are the pros and cons of receiving or giving foreign aid? How does each party, the donor and benefactor, benefit from such an arrangement? To answer this, Mrs. Oplas explains social capital and the conditions attached to aid.
Okay, so for the giving party, for the giving country, okay, usually the positive for them is that they gain social capital. When you say social capital, you have friends, from other countries. So like for example, in the US will now have allies. They have allies in the Philippines because of this aid. So that's a positive thing about them. There's also a concept na what they are sending, what they are giving to us are actually their excess. So since that's their excess, we are receiving them because that's actually we are lacking. So since it's their excess, it will not really cost them because it's their excess already. So that's again a positive on their part. A negative on their part is that part of the aid is of course coming from the taxes of their citizens. So if it's not used properly, then it's like wasting the hard-earned money of their taxpayers.
For
on
the
receiving
side.
For the receiving countries, of course, that's positive because that's aid. Right? And aid will always be welcome because it's an addition, it's an inflow of something that we badly need. But on the negative side, you have to remember there will always be something attached to. There's no free lunch, there's no free lunch in this life. So there is something may catch talaga in every aid that we receive. So that is the negative part. It's not necessarily positive.
Today, most people think aid is meant to eradicate poverty. However, it was only at the end of the 1960s that ideas about the purpose of aid began to change under the influence of Robert McNamara, who became the head of the World Bank in 1968. He promoted the idea of using donor-funded programs to meet people's basic needs in health, education, water, and sanitation. Since then, billions of dollars have been spent in aid to eradicate poverty in the world's poorest countries. However, not everyone agrees that aid is the best tool to eradicate poverty. R. Glenn Hubbard and William Duggan, authors of the book The Aid Trap: Hard Truths About Ending Poverty, argue that aid impedes the growth of the business sector in countries, thus negatively affecting their economic development. We brought up this sentiment with Mrs. Oplas to understand her take on this modern-day debate.
Some of the agreements for one of the agreements kasi in receiving aid from a particular country is that you should patronize their local industry, their industry in the country. So let's say, for instance, Australia, diba? Australia would give us aid. And one of the agreement is that we patronize or we help promote the Australian product industry or the Australian industry here in the Philippines. So that's one of the reasons why I think that one is saying that it can impede the business sector in the Philippines. But I don't agree that it will have a negative implication to the economic development, because if more Australian companies will be coming in here, and then if we will support them, then they will serve as competitors to our local industry, and competition should always be good. So I don't think that it will have a negative implication unless the local industry will not be able to compete with them. So the local industry must also be ready.
Under the current administration's hard stance on controversial issues like death penalty, the Philippines is at risk of losing thousands of dollars in aid from multiple countries, including long-term ally, the United States of America. Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano has stated that the country shall decline any foreign aid that comes with conditions. However, as we've already learned, all aid comes with conditions. The president himself has said that the country will survive without the aid. But how much does the Philippines receive in foreign aid? In 2015, the country received $175 million from the United States Development Assistance Fund alone. However, what is done with the money? We once again turn to Mrs. Oplas for her experience in working with foreign aid in the Philippines.
Okay, so I actually used to be the monitoring and evaluation officer of Private Enterprise Accelerated Resource Linkages Phase 2 project. It's a Canadian International Development Agency funded project in the Philippines. So the objective of that project is to help develop micro, small, and medium enterprise business support organizations in the Philippines. If you say business support organizations, these are local chambers, industry organizations, schools, business schools, etc. that supports micro, small, and medium enterprise development. So what do I do in that project? Okay. So I review and I help proponents, chambers, the local business support organizations in coming up with project proposals for funding. So the funding is it's like a grant. When you say grant, they don't have to return, they don't have to pay it. So it's theirs, if it's theirs to spend, as long as they have a really, really good project proposal.
So what types of projects are these, like examples of projects?
Training, so usually it's training. It's also one of the initiatives is to organize themselves, and another one is that we help them develop one-stop shops wherein they can showcase their products, etc. So they use that. So we have a 2 million pesos grant for business support organizations. But that 2 million, they have to show or they have to provide a counterpart of 2 million in kind and in cash.
Okay.
So we actually saw new enterprises developed because of that project, which is good for micro, small, and medium enterprise development. So the idea is that we support business support organizations because these business support organizations will help their members, and their members are the micro, small, and medium enterprises. So by helping the business support organizations, you are indirectly helping the micro, small, and medium enterprises.
So, so how does Canada benefit from that?
So how do they benefit from that? Usually they send consultants. So what do you mean by they send consultants? They have consultants that will help train these business support organizations. So they benefit from that because it's like they have an aid here in the Philippines and they're also using their aid by paying those consultants. So that's one way for them to benefit. Let's take, for example, Japan. The Japan International Cooperation Agency, if I'm correct, JICA, they provide technical support. In general, they provide technical support. So they don't provide, like, for example, infrastructure, they don't provide seed money, but they provide technical support. What do you mean by technical support? Technical support is that they bring in consultants to help again their beneficiaries. So how do they benefit from that? They benefit from that because they are able to transfer their technology to us. How do they support? If you look at the context of hegemonic, and then it's like their way to brainwash, not naman brainwash, but it's one way for them to make us embrace their technology. By using the aid, because they're paying the salaries for those consultants.
So both
salaries and then the expenditures. So the Japanese government as well as the Canadian governments, they are actually technically using their aid. Because they're using the aid to pay the consultants their staff here. So that's one way for them to benefit. Plus, of course, they're able to proliferate patronage to their technology or to their mindset, their ideology. Because the consultants will always educate you. And yung kanilang, that's of course how they think. So if you have like Japanese consultants, they will teach you the Japanese way. Yeah, bridges, routes, they actually have that. Si JICA is known for infrastructure, but they usually, they lay, bridges.
The skyway right now, new railway right now is from the Japanese.
But it's not an aid. It's a loan. I think it's a loan. It's not an aid. An aid kasi is like support. Pwede rin siyang long-term loan. But when you say kasi aid, it's like long-term loan siya, soft loan. Let's say, for example, in Bohol, the Canadians, through the Pearl 2 project, the one that I mentioned earlier, what they did was to help the Bohol Investment Promotion Center. Yung Bohol Investment Promotion Center kasi ngayon is based under the office of the local chief executive of Bohol. So they helped the Bohol Investment Promotion Center in improving their capacity to generate investments. So by training them, diba, by doing business matching, when you say business matching, they usually bring officers from these investment promotion centers to Canada to find matches there, to find businesses in Canada that can invest in Bohol. So they also sponsor trade missions. Ano naman yung mga trade missions, diba? They bring, for example, local investors from local businesses, owners in Bohol. They bring them to Canada so that these local businesses can either expand or they can find clients in Canada. So that's what you call matching, business matching. They also sponsor fairs where, again, local trade fairs wherein enterprises or businesses in Bohol can showcase their products and services. So those are complete examples of where the aid from Canada is going to.
But it's just Canada and Japan so far.
There's actually, of course, the U.S. U.S. through the USAID, Australia through AusAid, and you have German. So marami sila dito. Actually, Canada, wala yata yung France. I'm not aware of yung sa France. Pero yung European Union.
EU.
EU.
How about Britain?
Meron din sila. Si SIDA actually limited their support here in the Philippines. I remember that it started in 1998 when we completed our project. SIDA decided to concentrate in Africa. So that's supposed to be a good news for us because they felt that Africa needed their support more than us. So that's good news for us. Ibig sabihin, their support here in the Philippines was successful. They were successful. That's why they're moving out. They shouldn't be they shouldn't be a permanent entity here in the Philippines because one indicator of their success is us developing.
So we won't be dependent anymore. That makes sense.
So I think that's a good indicator that they leave. I think kasi there were outflows of support, but I don't know the numbers. But I think that in terms of support, we actually received increased support. Bakit? Because we have more countries now providing help sa Philippines. Paano nangyari yun? Because di ba what the President Duterte did was to actually widen our network by including countries that were not really close allies before. So like for example, Russia, China. So I think although there were outflows, I think there were more inflows. But I'm not really sure about the numbers. But I think that the nice thing about this administration is that we were able to widen our allies, which is good. Which is good. Of course, we're scared that it's China and it's Russia, but still, the idea is that widen your friends. It's still social capital.
Social capital.
So, okay na yan.
Thank you.
Foreign aid is supposed to help countries develop economically. More developed countries provide supplements or resources to help boost countries that need support. It is different from emergency aid, which is done only during times of calamities. It works by giving these countries economic resources they would have otherwise not had. These resources go back into the developing country's economy to help boost growth in other aspects. The donor country also benefits from the deal since they gain social capital. They forge good relationships that lead to alliances and markets for their products. Originally, eradicating poverty was not the aim of foreign aid. However, as it developed through the decades and as the priorities of the global society changed alongside with it, eradicating poverty is one of the main concerns of foreign aid now. Ever since Robert McNamara introduced the notion of using the aid to fund programs that cater to basic human needs, numerous organizations and countries have sought aid just for those purposes. Foreign aid cannot directly and instantaneously aid in terms of poverty. whereas the factor would have to come in with how the country would also respond to the small boost given to them economically. Therefore, while aid can be a tool to help solve poverty, it is not a silver spoon. Other aspects, like economic policies, should also seek out the same goal.